What is up, guys? It is the Sound Alchemist, and today we are doing things a little bit different. This is not a 40 facts video. This is a story time video. Story time doesn't sound as epic as I thought it would sound. But anyway, this is basically a story from the Chaos Codex that involves the Changeling. Now here is that which is sown shall someday be reaped. The entity known as the Changeling felt despondent, but that was expected. It happened every time one of his labyrinthine schemes reached completion. This was in part the sweet melancholy felt at the end of a long and beloved labor, but also a growing frustration that the inevitable anticlimactic ending was coming. After all, there was no one in this realm with the wit to appreciate the intricate details or the elaborate intervening he had so expertly wrought. The Changeling had tried explaining it to mortals before, but so many of the subtleties were lost on them that this game became tedious to him. Still wearing the form of a priest of the ecclesiarchy who had throttled in his escape from a doomed planet, the Changeling looked out from his hooded robe, and he observed his fellow refugees crowding around him. They were huddled in the cargo hold of a frightful mass, many clutching themselves or rocking back and forth, numbness and horror still etched on their faces. The Changeling drank deeply of their trembling terrors. Their raw emotion helped to maintain his physical presence, as he was rapidly beginning to fade. What began as unrest on the hive world of Rexos had quickly escalated into civil war. In hindsight, each move by the imperial governor, all of which made sense at the time and were backed by other high-level officials, had only acted to fuel the repressed masses further. Each new dishonor ratcheted the rhetoric to more incendiary heights, and in no time the feuding sides were at each other's throats. As the spacecraft pulled away from Rexos, the Changeling could feel the strain of manifesting himself. It may have been the lack of chaos energy, or perhaps his own reflections that caused the morph, but as he reviewed his glorious plan, the Changeling features slid back into that of the hawk-faced governor. A nearby refugee stirred and rubbed his eyes, alerting the trickster that something was amiss. When next the young human peered more closely under the hood, he was reassured to find only the priest's face looking back at him. By infiltrating both sides and whispering contaminated advice, the imperial governor ensured that the reconciliation efforts turned more violent. After the disclosure of massed death strike missile batteries and the suggestion to target a rival's reactor zone, the resulting explosions disrupted the planet's tectonic stability. Untold millions perished and toppled hives became raging infernos, enormous funeral pyres visible from orbit. But the worst was still yet to come. As the psychic upheaval on the planet reached its zenith, the Changeling opened portals to the warp, allowing pure chaos to spill forth. The air itself was rippled in two, and from out of these throbbing portals, demons emerged, loathsome beasts who had come to feed and destroy, which for them are one and the same. All the warfare and mayhem was built on a link in the chain, for once the demon legions arrived in force upon Rexos, it drew the attention of the Grey Knights. When they arrived, the Changeling, using many guises, had been forced to weave a path between the pitiless battles that erupted around each of the warp rifts upon Rexos. It was hard work to ensure the balance was right. The Grey Knights had to be hard-pressed enough so they had no time to grow suspicious. One by one, the holes were closed. The Grey Knights sustained many losses in order to perform their exorcisms, while around them the hive cities burned and the planet began to shake itself apart. The last operational spaceport, the Cloud Deck of Sector 7, became a beacon of hope to the remaining population. Millions of refugees fought their way there to flee the destruction of their world. Twice the Changeling had met his foes face to face, as the thrill of running further circles around his quarry was too much to resist. Once, as an adjacent to the Imperial Governor's guard, he delivered a data scroll to Brother Captain Stern, and at another time, the Changeling joined a council of advisors to Inquisitor Karamazov. The many intertwining plans were converging when the Changeling joined the refugee throng, consuming the priest and taking his place. This death, too, was prearranged, his doom marked years ago, when the flea had dared to speak aloud Zeech's name, claiming that he had the Emperor's protection and not to fear. As the last of the rifts were closed, the Grey Knights began to realize something was amiss. The Changeling knew he could fool the machines, the scanners, the warp trackers, and even energy fields. But intuition could still make the jumps that logic required, and though he loathed his adversaries, he knew full well their measure. It was Stern who had marked the Changeling's spoor, traced the demon to the Imperial Governor, and marked his trail to the refugee shuttles. The Changeling smiled, even as his physical body began to at last melt away. Even now, as the shuttle reached the outer orbit of Rexos, he could hear Stern's order to the battle barge Bright Sword. They knew he was aboard one of the thousands of ships, but they did not know which one. The Grey Knights would have to destroy each and every shuttle, hundreds of thousands of innocent lives, to ensure that he alone did not escape to start mischief anew elsewhere. He could hear their justifications, even as he slipped back into a realm that would appreciate the subtleties of his work. As the lance beams and torpedoes began to annihilate the first of the refugees' armada, he was gone, leaving only the crumpled robes of a slain priest behind. All the destruction, even the ultimate extinction of life upon Rexos, had been but minor plots, little more than loose ends tied off with panic. No, everything up to this point had been anticipated, planned out for this exact moment, for on board the Bright Sword, watching the merciless judgment take place, was a newly ordained Grey Knight. Brother Brutus was troubled by the slaughter. For a moment, forgetting the rituals of destination and the rites of purity, Brother Brutus let doubt enter the bastion of his mind. In all the chapter's long history, no Grey Knight has ever fallen to the lure of chaos. Only time would tell if Brother Brutus would be any different. But there, on the deck of the Bright Sword, a seed was planted. And that concludes our little short story on the Changeling and the Grey Knights. Let me know what you guys thought about this. Do you guys like these little short stories? Should we keep on with the creepypastas, or just stick to our 40 facts and for the greater wars? In my opinion, I thought it was pretty cool. I never really liked the Changeling, but his little mischievous ways always seem to lead to something bigger. In this case, the extinction of Rexos, and perhaps the biggest thing, the corruption of the uncorruptible. That's right, guys. Do you think Brother Brutus, I believe it was, do you think he will be the first Grey Knight to ever turn chaos? I hope not. I play Grey Knights and I want them to remain pure and help the Emperor in every way they can, but you never know. GW is always changing up the lore, so we just gotta sit and wait. Hopefully the Changeling is not the beginning of this. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Is Brother Brutus gonna become a Judas, or is he just gonna overcome his insecurities? Also, guys, as a heads up, there is a Patreon surprise giveaway going on. It's really easy. Just become a patron. It's $1 a month, and you guys get to support us. And as well, you guys get extra videos each and every week. Now, basically, there is a greater wall that we put on Patreon that only Patreons can see and comment. So if for some reason we don't answer your questions on our regular YouTube for the Greater Walls, we answer each and every one of our patrons' questions on there, so that it would be a sure way for us to answer your questions. I feel like I said that like 6 or 7 times, but anyway, you guys get me. That's all I've got for you guys. Let me know if we should continue this storytelling thing. Let me know if you guys want more creepypastas, and if you guys want to check out the Patreon stuff. It's pretty awesome. And thanks again, guys. This has been the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and today I am signing out.